and we are all well aware how much emphasis the Act gives to the role and the wishes of community. But in terms of the land exchange process that under the Reserves Act that we now under the, if you will, under the Local Government Act are going to, or been asked to support, coming back to that issue of community, on comments regarding the statutory process and the consideration panel, section 12, the officer's report from Nigel Hewitson, Team Leader Disposals, points out that the consultation period ran from the 22nd of June to the 24th of July, and 233 submissions were received during that period. And then it goes down to break down those submissions, including a submission from Ngāti Maru, misspelt, and on behalf of Ngā Mana Whenua o Tamaki Makaurau. But it doesn't actually say, doesn't break down whether they were for and against. I was going to ask that question, but I now see in the paper helpfully tabled by Three Kings United and the South Epsom Planning Group that there, of the breakdown of those 233, 226 opposed and only 7 supported. But the officer's report, in terms of our decision-making role under the Local Government Act, kind of overlooks telling us that very important piece of information. Madam Chair, there are a number of principles at stake here. The deal is very complicated, but the principles are not. And one is the principle of democracy, and the views of the local community in regard that the Local Government Act enjoins us that we must take very seriously indeed if we are to adhere to a good decision-making process. And it appears that part of the Local Government Act in terms of the community's wishes we're just going to ignore, which I have to say I'm uncomfortable with. In terms of the equity, which the hearing panel or the land exchange panel covered their decision by saying they assume the deal will be equitable. So in terms of their recommendation, they are putting the onus on us to guarantee that the exchange is an equitable one, and we've heard some very serious concerns raised by Mr. McEwen about that one, so that is very concerning. I have to say, Madam Chair, that we should listen to the advice of the local board when it respectfully asks for us to defer this decision on this day, and give more time to come up with a solution. And we've been assured by this local board in particular that they are all for the so-called compact city. They are for development. They are supportive of having more homes built in their local board area, but they want time to work with the community to come up with something which is more equitable. Now, the simple principle here is, do we listen to the local board and the local community and their overwhelming views, or do we listen to this offshore-owned company, Fletcher's, which for its own business reasons wants to get this deal done as quickly as possible? In terms of the Richard Reid report, I note the concerns that his holistic, integrated view does entail other privately owned pieces of land or land that is not owned by the council, but that the fact that land isn't owned by Fletchers hasn't inhibited them from coming up with a comprehensive plan that suits their business interests. Unfortunately, at this point at least, does not include or is not supported by the public. I am reminded, Madam Chair, of the very sorry story about what happened to Queen Elizabeth Square and Precinct Properties, and I sat in at the hearing, the RMA hearing the other day, and watched community representatives battling for the public interest against Precinct Property and the council. And I would hate to see, Madam Chair, the good name of the Auckland Council sullied by
could you
Auckland Council lining up with Fletchers against the people of Puketapapa. Thank you, Madam Chair. That's it.
Councillor Lee, as someone who chaired...
It was all entirely in order, Madam Chair.
Councillor, I would beg to differ.
And very quick.
Maybe his hearing aid was off.
I think maybe, yes, that would be a very good idea. I do appreciate a good speech and I do appreciate politics, but sometimes we also need to remember that we're here to get the job done, no matter how difficult and challenging that is. So I'm going to move to the Mayor. Who gets the job done? Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. Okay, so the position is this. We actually decided in principle that we would support this discussion and negotiation.
That's right.
Around this table, and a reasonable formal and formidable majority. We like the idea, and why wouldn't you? A quality, compact city. First word, quality. What was our major concern when we decided that we would like to enable and encourage brownfields development? We were worried about how we would complement the developments in and around our communities, and particularly a development like this. How could we embellish it, improve it, make it look better? We would improve and build and park land, amenity around the facilities. And so we've got two options here. We can basically give Fletchers the bird and just send them off and they can continue doing what they're doing. And, you know, that is not the issue here for us to decide. Leave them with 373. Forget the fact that we actually decided ourselves that we would actually allow this discussion to take place and approve the idea in principle. Just let them do it and leave us alone. In some point or another, the rest of this land will get developed in some type of parkland, I suspect. Or we could say, thanks very much, job pretty well done, team, and actually allow this process to continue. To develop an amenity around this development that could be to the benefit of the whole community. And I quite like that. That's really what I'm being asked for here today. Is so we've come back with a proposal that you asked us to go out and get, and so we've done that, and I like it. I actually think that will absolutely contribute to a quality, more compact city, sitting right on our major transportation lines, and in due course, I suspect, right beside light rail as we roll it out in the decades ahead. I think it will be potentially a great development for the community. I like the fact that it probably enhances connectivity to the maunga, particularly as we've put the maunga authority in place and encouraged them, having actually decided that 3 kings is in fact 1 king, and have carried out the work that we have done there as a community over decades and decades and decades. This is an opportunity to actually, to some extent, reconstruct or deconstruct that local area into something a lot better. And 2 sports fields.
Constructs the right word.
2 sports fields. Brilliant. We're short of sports fields. And they'll certainly be well drained. Councillor Wayne sitting on top of volcanic scoria activity.
Could be good for kayaking.
Well. But, so, thank you, Councillor Wayne.
Well, you are.
You know, the opportunity for what is proposed is, I think, for significant enhancement of a brownfields development, which is really what we're all about, isn't it? Isn't that what we're trying to do? So, the final issue, and the one that member Michael and the board came through to promote was whose ultimate responsibility is? It's ours. It's quite frankly ours. And I don't think that there could be any accusation that we haven't tried our very best to allow time in this matter. The proposal is for further deferrals. The outcome of that is more time and discussion, and we've had a lot of time and discussion around this whole project in its broadest concept, years. And really, if the responsibility is ours, and we would accept that there has been a lot of discussion, maybe for some, and certainly in the board, never enough, not enough in this instance, but at some point you've got to make a decision. And having actually come back with what I think is a reasonably doable project, and with reasonable benefits to it, and if there are concerns about valuations covered in the recommendation, then why don't we just get on with it? Why don't we just get on with it? So, councillors, I will certainly be supporting the need for us to get on with it and build a great brownfields development and build a great amenity around it.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So we're now speaking directly to the recommendation. We've had a couple of speakers for, speaker against. I've got Councillor Watson next. Hang on, let's just be clear. Councillor Casey, you did, to be fair to you, you did raise the fact that you wanted to have an amendment for a deferral put. What we'll do is, I don't think that needs to be debated, it's simply a yes or no. So what we might do is just put up the amendment, and that will either be passed or lost, and then we'll
I'd like to
move
speak to the amendment, thanks.
substantive. So let's just be a little bit clear here.
Madam Chair, I'm happy to second the amendment.
Okay. So just to keep a little bit of order, you can third it, Councillor Lee. What we'll do is, I think we should, to keep a hat on the chaos, let's deal with the amendment and then let's move to the substantive, acknowledging that we've already had people starting to speak to the substantive motion. I think that's probably the cleanest way of dealing with this. So why don't we just move to Councillor Casey? Did you want to speak to your amendment, and then we'll deal with that, then deal with the substantive. Councillor Casey.
Our legal counsel said it's legally sound and proper for this committee to make a decision today. I think if the decision of this committee today is to approve this, it's morally reprehensible. And I'm really disappointed in the Mayor, because this is about whether or not the issue of subsidiarity exists in this council, and that is that we give responsibility to the local boards for local decision making and local place making. And you've heard from the local board, and you've also heard from the local community, and that's what they seem to be left out of all of this. You know, I'm sick and tired of hearing like for like and no cost to council. Let me talk about what Gary Bryan talked about earlier. The Davids versus the Goliaths. Let me talk about the Davids. The Davids is the Pookie tap of a local board. You've heard on numerous occasions from them to say, it's not about not wanting development, it's about this development, because there is a better way, and that's what the community have been trying to tell you every time they've come in here. I've been on the Whinstone Quarry CLG for as long as I've been a councillor, the last 10 years. Forgive me, Fletchers, I know you're sitting there, but they are poor neighbours to Three Kings. They have been. This is a chance to put it right. Fletcher could say, instead of rushing to a plan change within 3 days of the Three Kings precinct plan, they could have said, well, here's our chance. Well, here is our chance as the governing body to say, we've got Richard Reid's proposal, we've got the willing and able local board, we've got the community all on side. 255 came to a public meeting, unheard of. In my 10 years in that area, unheard of. To hear Richard Reid give an alternative proposal. It was universally acclaimed at the end of the meeting. So that's what I want to talk about, is the hidden voice of the community who's here to say yes, but please can we have something better than this? We have been dealing with this for at least a decade. And so the pace and momentum argument for the mayor doesn't wash. If we've gone this far, we can go that little bit further. It's not their fault that only 102 houses have been built. I know Nick Smith took a busload of journalists up to Three Kings. What to see? The quarry. To tell them about the thousands of houses coming down the line. These pictures, Clive, don't show the 10 layers. The 10...
Councillor.
All right, I know, keep me in line.
We
Keep me in
know,
line.
acknowledge the passion, let's just stay on issue, okay,
You put me right off.
sorry.
There's just going to be more of the same, right? The local board, we've never actually said yes to the local board about anything around this quarry. And that's how you get comments from the good public of Three Kings saying, this is a case of big money and resources versus the community.
Yeah.
They think that we're in bed with Fletchers. Why? Because they are working with Fletchers on a land swap. The ACPL Panuku development.
Hang on, councillor, okay.
There doesn't seem to be, but it
Councillor,
does
just-
seem like that.
I know, and let's just contain
And there's a way
our
of
comments
fixing
to-
it, and the way of fixing it is to support this amendment, which invites Fletcher to come back to the table and talk to us and get the best outcome for Three Kings. You will have universal acclaim if you do that. You will get support that you've never had, because you won't get support for this development because of the way you've done it. It hasn't been above board. It's not been.
Councillor, hang on.
It hasn't
hang on.
been.
Let's just.
It hasn't been. You don't go rushing to a plan change 3 days after the Three Kings.
Councillor.
The ink was barely dry on the document when they ran to put in the plan
Councillor,
changes.
I am going to call a halt to that. Let's not stray into
Well,
casting aspersions that
I'll
doesn't,
leave it at this.
that doesn't
Fletcher
dignify
now has a
this-
chance. If
that
we
doesn't
agree to a
dignify this
deferral,
debate.
the
Okay.
chance is, and I invite Fletcher to
Yep.
come back to the table with the Three Kings plan, with the community, and with the Puketapa local board, and with me and Councillor Fletcher, and we'll get you the best development that suits everybody. And we'll have Richard Reid at the table as well.
Righty-ho.
He's a nice man.
So, councillor, your amendment is up there. I think it's fairly clear, possibly doesn't need a huge amount of debate. I think, why don't we put the amendment? It's been moved and seconded, and I'm sure
By
you'll want
division,
it by
thank you.
division. Right, by division. So, councillors and members, you're clear. This is councillor Casey and councillor Fletcher's amendment. Right.
Do we have a division?
Yes, we are, councillor. A division has been called for.
Your Worship,
No.
Councillor Brewer,
No.
Councillor Casey,
Yes.
Councillor Cashmore,
No.
okay, Councillor Cashmore, it's a no.
Yeah.
We've got it. Councillor Darby,
No.
Councillor Filipina, Councillor Fletcher,
Yes.
Councillor Crum,
Against.
Councillor Lee,
Aye.
Member Namani,
No.
Councillor Penrose,
Not here.
Here we go, here we go.
Here he is. You're voting.
Councillor Penrose,
No. On your feet.
Councillor Quacks,
No.
Councillor Stewart,
No.
Member Taipari,
No.
I couldn't hear that, Madam Chairwoman.
It was a no,
okay.
councillor.
Councillor John Walker. No. Councillor Wayne Walker,
Yes.
Councillor Watson,
Yes.
Councillor Webster,
No.
Councillor Wood,
No.
Deputy Mayor Hulse,
What was that?
A no.
it is lost.
Okay. So we'll revert to, thank you for that.
Substantive motion.
Revert to the substantive motion.
Is this a threat or an invitation? Is this how you operate up north?
Yeah, well, yeah.
So, members, we have